Are you sick of going to the gym and not seeing the results that you feel like your hard work deserves? Well, this is what you're probably missing. Hi, welcome back. I'm Ryan, and I'm an online coach who's worked with hundreds of clients, helping them to build the body that they want, whilst making sure that they have the performance to back it up as well. Today, I'm going to look at one of the most important aspects of your training in the gym. You need to make sure you're getting in order to achieve that body that you want. If you've been training for a while, you may have heard the word mechanical tension thrown around. Today, I'm actually going to break down what that is, why it's important, how you can incorporate it into your training, and a few other little tips along the way as well. So mechanical tension was positioned alongside two other factors as the three pillars of muscle building. You've got mechanical tension, metabolic stress, and muscle damage. And previously, the general thinking was that they all contributed fairly equally to the overall muscle building picture. The best way to think of metabolic stress, that is the pump. When you walk out of the gym and you're feeling massive and your arms are like they're going to burst out of your skin, you feel like you can't walk through the door without going sideways, that's the pump, that's metabolic stress. That burning sensation in the muscles that people kind of grow to like. In fact, Arnie had something to say about it here.
The greatest feeling you can get in a gym, or the most satisfying feeling you can get in the gym, is the pump. It's as satisfying to me as coming is, as having sex with a woman and coming. So can you believe how much I am in heaven? I'm like getting the feeling of coming in the gym, I'm getting the feeling of coming at home, I'm getting the feeling of coming backstage when I pump up, when I pose out in front of 5,000 people, I get the same feeling. So I'm coming day and night.
Bit weird that one, Arnie, to be honest, mate. Not going to lie. Probably kept that one to yourself. So moving swiftly on anyway, where were we? I've kind of lost my trail of thought since imagining Big Arnie coming in the gym. Yeah, so we were talking about the pillars of muscle building. Next up is muscle damage. Muscle damage is the soreness that you feel after a workout. That pain you get in your arse cheeks after some heavy lunges, or maybe when the abs are so sore that it hurts to cough. That is muscle damage. However, the most recent evidence suggests that it's actually mechanical tension, which is the biggest driver of muscle growth. This is the primary signal that causes change. That feeling, for example, of where you're trying to push up on a bench press, and despite all the effort that you're putting in, the bar's only moving really, really, really slowly, and you're having to work your chest really hard, that there is mechanical tension. In terms of the other two, I mean, metabolic stress has an impact, but it's more like a secondary effect. And muscle damage, I'd argue, actually has a far lower effect on muscle building. Because like I say, you could be very sore after a marathon, and that's going to have absolutely zero muscle building impact on you. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't be sore after a workout. From time to time, you may be, especially if you've been doing exercises with like a high eccentric component, things like forward lunges, for example, where you're having to decelerate the movement. That's going to cause some soreness. Or if you introduce a new stimulus, an exercise that you either haven't done before, so it's novel, or one that you haven't done in a long time, again, that's going to cause some soreness. It's not a bad thing. It's not something that you need to think, oh shit, I've really messed up here. But it's not something that you need to be actively chasing because it's not really linked to muscle growth. It's just an after effect. It's this mechanical tension then that we really want to focus on. And there is evidence to suggest that this mechanical tension is even more effective when it is placed on a muscle that's stretched in a lengthened position. So a good example of this would be like a Romanian deadlift. When you're at the bottom of that hinge position, that combination there of the muscle being stretched under load, there's some promising signs that that's really effective for muscle growth. That's partly why you're seeing this increased popularity in things like lengthened partials at the moment. Something for another video. But the main thing you want to remember is that mechanical tension is good. If you can apply that to a muscle in a lengthened position, even better. How do you know then if you're creating sufficient mechanical tension? Well, a very simple way typically is one, like, can you feel it? On a cable fly, for example, I know that I can feel my chest muscles working extremely hard. I can feel that tension in them as I go through each and every rep. Being able to pay attention and listen and tune into your own body is important. Also, what you should see is as you start to take each set closer to failure, the speed with which you're able to complete those reps should start to decrease. Despite the amount of effort that you may put in, the reps will begin to slow down. And that would demonstrate that you're taking the reps close enough to failure, that the muscles are having to create a huge amount of tension. They're having to recruit as many muscle fibers as possible to complete that rep. That's a really promising sign. If you get to the end of your set and you're still able to move the bar with a consistent speed, there's no sign of slowing down, there's no signs of struggle on your face, probably not creating sufficient mechanical tension there. This is partly where kind of like the load comes in as well. Typically, it's slightly easier to create mechanical tension with a slightly heavier load, moderate to heavy, because you're almost having to push relatively hard from pretty much rep number one. And so there's almost a degree of tension there from the very first rep all the way through to the end. That's not to say that you can't achieve mechanical tension with lighter weights. You absolutely can, but you have to almost go through those initial reps first to take your muscles to the point of fatigue, where we then start to kind of grind out those reps. And so sometimes in that scenario, what you may find happens is your cardio gives out before the muscle does. On the flip side, though, with lighter weights, probably a little bit kinder on the joints. Can be easier to keep technique looking solid. There's positives and negatives to both, and that's why typically with most of my clients, I'll use a combination. More of my compound lifts are going to be heavier, probably within like the 4 to 8 rep range, maybe even up to 10. Here we're going to focus on going heavy, but not quite as close to failure. We might leave 2 to 4 reps in the tank, mainly just from one, health and safety point of view, but also two, the amount of fatigue that heavy compounds place on the central nervous system can mean that they're very taxing and a lot to recover from. And then I'll add in some extra like machine work, isolation work that will be slightly more kind of moderate to light, and we'll focus on mainly like the 8 to 12 rep range, maybe even 12 to 15. The important thing underpinning all of that, though, regardless of the load, is actually that proximity to failure. If we're not training to at least 5 reps away from failure, but ideally probably a little bit closer to failure than that, you're not going to be generating enough mechanical tension to really drive any significant change. Mechanical tension really isn't anything new, anything really complex. In its simplest form, it's training hard. Do you know what I mean? Training hard with a sensible choice of exercise. But unfortunately, it is important to remind people of this, because I still see people chasing the soreness. I still see people chasing the pump. And that isn't what's going to give you the body that you want. Train hard, train close to failure, create that tension, take exercises through a full range of motion so you get that weighted stretch in a lengthened position, and progressively over time, do more, lift more weight, do more reps. That is going to be the key to building the physique that you want. Hopefully you found this useful and you can go away and apply it in your own training. And if you have, then make sure you subscribe to see more content like this. Catch up soon.